in order to do that, you need to modernize the infrastructure. And at the core of infrastructure modernization, this is particularly important for systems where data has to be managed. You want to build systems that are computer-based, where a lot of the operations are managed by computers. So for example, if you have an IP network, an internet protocol network, it turns out that the intelligence in the switches and routers is what allows your phone call when you make a phone call, or your email when you send an email, to go to the proper destination. There are IP addresses on both the sending end and the receiving end. And so you need to have it's a very complex telecom, datacom network that is managed, controlled, configured, deconfigured, reconfigured in software. Okay, so let's go to the second bullet. Why are the pros? So those of you who are in the Puff Daddy team, and the cons, those of you who are on Amy's team, what are the issues for the two of you? So let's look at the pros and cons. And you can see the list there. It's pretty much self-explanatory. The key pro is, let me ask you the following. If I could put you in a new dwelling, brand new, and it's completely modernized and updated, when you pull up in your car or bicycle, or even when you walk to the door, the building recognizes that it's you. It automatically unlocks the door. It automatically locks the door for people who are not authorized to enter. When you come in, it automatically turns on your stove, the foods that you've selected that you want to have for dinner. You know, they're all ready to be heated. The whole building is completely modernized. I'm going to give you this building, and you can work from home. You particularly want to work from home these days. And everything that you need for an effective work from home telecom, datacom environment is already a part of this new dwelling that I'm going to make for you. And what I tell you is I'm going to do all that for you, and you don't have to pay a penny more in rent. Not a penny. Mm. That's the pro. That's that first pro. The second one is no tax increases are required, so you don't have to mug the rich folks. The rich folks, by the way, one of the main reasons the rich folks don't want to pay more taxes is because so much of the money is wasted. Why in the world would I put money into an engine when I know the engine is going to burn up most of the money that I put in? The next bullet is savings are guaranteed. So we talked a bit about energy performance contracts, guaranteed savings. If the new environment does not perform the way it was intended to, you don't have to pay all the savings to the folks that put the new infrastructure in place. So that provides the incentive for the people that are providing the solution to make them behave every day. Because if they fail to deliver measured, verified savings, they don't get paid. The other, number four, the benefit there is continuous modernization. What you don't want, don't you hate that? You go out, you buy a brand new car. You drive slowly past your friends so they can see that you got a new ride. But a year later, that ride is old. Then your friends drive slowly past you with their new ride. Well, you want to have a solution that, where the savings are so tasty that the solution can be continuously modernized. Every year, your ride is renewed. And you don't pay any more for it. The next bullet, number 5, you want to get rid of this legacy infrastructure. You want to, instead of just, patching it up with bubble gum and baling wire, a little fix here, a little fix there, you can just replace the whole thing, everything that needs to be gotten rid of, and get stuff that's brand new. Number 6, that's pretty self-explanatory. Number 7, you want an engine that is going to create American jobs. All those electronics jobs that we stupidly allowed to go overseas. That's one of the great American tragedies. It has nothing to do with NAFTA and all the other trading agreements. It has to do with the fact that the relationships among Americans had broken down to the point where we can no longer trust each other to go to work and build products that would be the best in the world for a fair price. And so manufacturers started looking for options, and they looked outside before they would look inside to come up with the solutions necessary to keep that manufacturing here. This solution will allow us to make steps in the direction of bringing manufacturing back to the United States. What are the cons? So right now you have an appropriations process where all of the agencies have employees, well-paid employees, who are hired every year to do deals with congressional offices. And what do? They beg for budget. And what does Congress do? Only pay for what they plead. If they plead enough for the right money, and we can schmooze and so on and so forth with the plea, then they will get paid. Number two, savings. If you save money, if you improve the efficiency with which government now operates, jobs will be lost. That's one of the cons. Folk will lose their jobs. And don't panic. Anybody here ever heard of the Pony Express?
Yeah.
It only lasted in America for a little over a year. What happened to all those folks who were riding all those ponies carrying all that mail? You know what wiped them out? Telegraph. The telegraph, the Pony Express, you only had a few hundred riders. The telegraph hired thousands of Americans. So never just take at face value the loss of jobs as a reason for not encouraging innovation. Because your innovation should and always does economically. If you look at innovation, the history of innovation in the world, innovations tend to create more better jobs. The third risk of innovation is, what if it doesn't work? That's the third one. Number four, bureaucrats just don't like the buzz. I don't know how else to put it, but because they've worked hard to learn how to put a process in place and to maintain it. So changing it all of a sudden is simply unattractive. The other problem with bureaucrats who have an infrastructure they're maintaining, largely through their relationships, contracts, et cetera, with outside third parties, is that those relationships are tasty. If I lose my job working in a government agency, then because I've had a good relationship with a third-party contractor on the outside, then I got a landing zone. Fourth, cheating. It has been reported. There's some people who argue that these energy performance contracts don't work and that the ESCOs or the super ESCOs take all this money from the federal government and they don't give the government what they promise. That can happen, but only if it's done poorly. Number six, taxpayers don't really have a say in the process. The taxpayers, if you can think of it, is sort of like it's like a bargaining collective, if you will. Well, who represents the bargaining collective? The politicians, Congress, for example, in a Republican government. Well, the point is, if I'm a congressperson, what's more important to me? Votes or the money required to manipulate elections? So when issues come up that bear on whether or not the taxpayer is going to get a good deal, my incentive is challenged. All right, number three, who are the stakeholders? We know who they are. The White House and the cabinet, and all of them have been saying for years, have you ever noticed that? Every president for the last few rounds since Clinton has been in favor of PPPs, or public-private partnerships. They all are in favor of it. And Congress is also in favor of PPPs. The problem is that they see these partnerships differently. The second group, or the third group of stakeholders are the appointees. So remember how we said that every agency has a person who runs the agency? That person is appointed. So that means that the full-time people who really work to keep everything working day to day, month to month, year to year, they are not running the agency. Well, they're not at the top, we should say. And that the agency moves along as a result of negotiation between the appointees and the people who live and work in that agency and who've been government employees for years, if not decades. The third, the next one, E, in terms of stakeholders, is the private money. It's big money. We talked about it. Trillions of dollars sitting on the sidelines. And by the way, cash does not like to stay hidden in pockets. Cash does not like to be lazy. It wants to be put to work to do what? Make more cash.
Yeah.
So if you can give them an incentive to take the cash they've got and make more with it, they would jump at the chance if the chance can stand up under critical scrutiny. And then number F, remember we said that at the end of the Bush presidency, this is the son, he essentially made $80 billion available to ESCOs to modernize energy infrastructure in the federal government. 80 billion. And that was over 20 years ago. Guess how much about that? Maybe not 20, more like maybe 15 or 16 years ago, something like that. It turns out that of that $80 billion, only 15 billion of it was put to work. Okay, number 4. So how do you negotiate the solution? Okay, this is for the 2 teams now. First thing you have to have, every team, every person, if you're ever going to negotiate, you better have a BATNA. And that's private. Don't tell anybody what it is, but you better have it. What's BATNA? It's the best alternative to a negotiated agreement.
Yeah.
BATNA, if you will, is your walk-away position. So if you go in the shop for a car, you look at a bunch of the advertisements, talk to a few people, you may be a member of Sam's or Costco's, and you looked at the car that you want. You may have a relationship with Consumer Reports, and so you get a feel for how much you should pay. And then you and your partners decide, okay, I'm gonna pay this much and no more. So if you go someplace and people start offering you deals on your car, and they give you, hey, you have these bells and those whistles, you say, okay, fine, but how much is that gonna cost me? Well, if their price is not right, if you can't hit a deal that you like, you're gonna walk away. That's your bet. That's the first thing you have to have. The second thing that you need to be responsible for as leaders is that you have to build a sufficient consensus. What does that mean? That means everybody ain't gonna agree. But the consensus that you build is sufficient enough to actually make a decision. Everybody else is gonna have to get with the program. If you are a leader, you're gonna look, that's number, we're gonna get to that at D. That is an essential element of leadership, but it comes with a severe caveat. Number C, you should have a clear understanding of the gives and gets. Okay, so what you gonna give me? I don't know what you going. Well, what you want? Well, what you gonna give me? Well, what you want? Well, those are the gives and gets. Every negotiation requires a clear, transparent, more or less, set of gives and gets. That becomes the basis for any potential transaction. Number D, some folk gotta get wet. Some of the people that are gonna participate in the decision-making process, now remember, you're leaders. Some of the decision makers have higher rank than you, and you have to take them out. Some of them are peers. Y'all have lunch together, you celebrate Juneteenth or 4th of July together, you know, you have holidays, you used to go to vacations. If you still do, you wear your masks. These are folks you know. Some of them got to go. As you're building it. So you have, as a leader, this is a necessity. You have to have a get with the program approach, but you also have to have discretion. You cannot walk around with a club in one hand and a gun in the other and be a leader. If there are people that have to be removed from the process, you have to learn to do it in a way that is effective. It is compassionate. It is essential. There's no other way. If you make a mistake, you will have created an enemy who will get you. All right, now the fun part. You'll have 19 minutes. So now it's time for the teams the pro crowd and the con crowd to make your cases.
Okay, so let's see how I can do this. I don't have meeting rooms. Maybe I can group Lillian and Kim, Moses and Sienna. Let's see if I can do that.
You can do that, or they could just speak up. You could just have a person. So I'll tell you what, one way to do it is, so let's make an assumption. This will make it a little easier on you. I'm going to assume that there's more than one of you who is pro. But I could be wrong. You could all be con. In that case, I'm going to be pro.
So
I'm going to also assume that more than at least one of you, if not more, is con.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want is for anyone in any of the two groups to speak up, a pro person or con person. And for the other pros who are like-minded, or those who are like-minded with the cons, you can also speak up, compliment what you hear, disagree even if you choose, but you have an opportunity to speak up. Is there anybody here who feels that it makes sense to save taxpayer money?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Terry? Did she light it just because I thought I saw Terry's
She's still on. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I muted?
Oh boy, I think we lost it. No, here she is. Okay.
Okay.
Terry?
Can you hear?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Oh.
I would be a con person,
Good.
but I want to hear from someone else before I speak my piece.
No, speak your piece. You're the leader. It's the leadership class. So you're going to speak your piece and bam, that's it.
I think I'm jaded because I've been a con for so long, I wouldn't know how to act any other way.
Excellent. Excellent. That's vital feedback.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Well, I defaulted to the con. I'm concerned about the technology risk and the innovation risk. How do we know that there will be a return on investment if we appropriate the $80 billion?
Anybody else? Excellent.
Karen, can you scroll back to the pros?
Okay, sure. Okay, let's see. Here we are. Okay.
So this is Kim. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Hi. So, initially in your opening slide, you kind of marketed, or it was marketed, I can't say you, but taxpayer money to drive spectacular outcomes.
Yes.
And so, and seeing that's what really caused me to become pro, because why wouldn't you want to see spectacular outcomes? And then during the presentation, to preserve the status quo, you mentioned distinctively that $65 billion, can we say that it was lost or was not utilized of the $80 billion allocated to bettering the energy process, right?
That's right. 65 billion was not used.
Was
They
not
still haven't
used.
used. That's correct.
So only 15 million was.
15 billion, correct.
And so, my generation, I think I'm considered Generation X. We learned this the other day. I think that we are willing to take risks. And as you poignantly mentioned, money is not to be just left to sit to collect dust.
Excellent.
It's to be used to go and generate more money. So with efficiencies is a savings in taxpayer dollars. And then that's part of the spectacular outcomes that was advertised in your beginning slides.
Very good. And remember, the savings are guaranteed. So the way the process works is that if the new infrastructure is built, the old infrastructure remains in place. The new infrastructure is built as a parallel universe. And only after the new infrastructure is built does the transition from the old to the new begin. If the new is transitioned to, and it fails to deliver, that means that the investors lose money.
Okay. Okay.
Excellent comments from all of you. Thank you, Kim. Moses Hardy, looks like you were going to say something.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. It's good to see all of you. I am a pro.
What? With all that gray?
Yes. Old dogs can learn new tricks.
Excellent. That's why Moses had something to say to Pharaoh. He was an old man.
I don't see, I mean, to me, the pros significantly outweigh the cons. The only concern I would have, you talked about getting the consensus and moving that or creating that inertia to move those who are on the other side. But to me, it's clear winning. The savings are guaranteed. No tax increases. It's perfect. I have nothing negative to say about the objects in the pro category.
Well, don't talk to me. You got some cons that you got to talk to. Y'all's leaders.
Okay. Well,
So,
what?
and by the way, let me just say this.
Okay.
Only one of you can win. That's the first thing. The second thing I want to say is failure to make change costs the taxpayers billions of dollars for every year of delay.
Yeah.
That's guaranteed loss. Okay, go on.
So Dr. Wyatt, I have a question. So there's apparently an inverse relationship with savings and losing jobs or costing jobs. Could you explain that more?
Sure. So excellent question. The thing is that right now, if any of you has ever had an old car that has spent a lot of time in the garage, if you ever try to put that car on the road, you have trouble getting parts. Labor is expensive. But if you do put it on the road, you can get parts. You may have to pay through the nose to get them. You can find labor. You have to pay through the nose to get it and sustain it. You can do all that. But if you get a new car, then that means that all of those old parts manufacturers can no longer do business with you. They can't get any more of your money.
Creative destruction.
The person who was fixing that old jalopy, if they don't learn new tricks, no job for them.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
What we have now in terms of maintaining these legacy infrastructures, it turns out that the federal government in some agencies, 50% of the employees are contractors.
Mm-hmm.
And those contractors are on the job for the purpose of maintaining legacy infrastructure, hardware, and software.
So you're fixing something that's going to continuously need to be fixed because it's old and outdated.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So which is a waste of energy and money and everything else.
Excellent.
Also, by developing new software manufacturing, we bring some of those manufacturing jobs back to the US.
Excellent.
And they're affordable. And we can teach individuals new skills and train them on how to do these new jobs. Rather than continuing to do the old over and over and over again, we're spinning our wheels and walking in place.
So now if you think about these poor brothers and sisters in West Virginia who have been working the coal mines for many decades, their families and their families before them and so on and so forth, and they got all grades of black lung disease and everything else, and they can't afford to provide their kids with college tuition, even a good basic education. What are those folks going to do for a living? Now, you can't just keep chipping away at coal, because it turns out that since coal is collapsing as an industry in this country and worldwide. So that means that those folks, if they're going to have a chance at life, they need something new. Innovation is the only option they have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's good. Okay.
And this provides the money to do that training, to go in and train individuals on these new skills that don't exist today.
Correct.
Absolutely. Lillian says she's a pro person, but really wish that we could have a hybrid, that this will help in the negotiating process. Lillian,
okay, now I'm going to speak on behalf of the investor.
Okay.
Okay. The investor says, I ain't interested in piecemeal money.
Mm-hmm.
If you want my money, you either gonna go strong or I'm gonna find someplace else to park it.
Yeah.
So then I would tell them, okay, I'll give you your money, but in the back, you're gonna send me I'm gonna send you a little in the front door, but your back door is wide open because we have antiquated machinery, antiquated software. What are you going to do when this malfunctions? Do you have a real world, how much money will you spend then to get ramped up?
Excellent. So here's how it works. What happens is that the money on the outside has to have a relationship. Remember I mentioned the ESCO, the energy services company? So the energy services company, they're the ones that have what remains of this $80 billion of contract facility. And they go to the agencies and they say, look, you know, can we come in and do an assessment at our cost of your environment? And if we do this assessment, it's called a preliminary assessment. The purpose of that assessment is to look at the opportunities to save you money and to look at what it will cost us to put in the necessary new infrastructure in order for you to derive those savings. So they do that preliminary analysis. They take that preliminary analysis to the agency and to the investor. Now the investor starts grinning when they look at the savings. They say, oh, well, if you're gonna save this kind of money, then I can give you the money that you need to build the infrastructure, all of it, as long as you're gonna give me back my money.
Mm-hmm.
You better come up with a way of reducing my risk of investment. Otherwise, I'm gonna put my money someplace else. I'm definitely not gonna pay taxes. I'm definitely not gonna turn around and give it to the government. And I'm not gonna give to the poor, forget about it. Even your Jesus told you the poor you're gonna always have with you. Who am I? So the point is, the investor is incentivized. Now remember what we said, and if you go back and read the abstract that I sent you, remember those investors, they're saying, hey, look, if I can get, you know, 0.5% of gain on the money that I have in the money market, et cetera, I'm gonna do it. It may not be big money, but even if it's 0.25% or 0.1%, after all, 0.1%, well, let's put it this way, what's 1% of $1 billion? It's $10 million. So I'm gonna make some money. I may not make as much as I can make with you, but that's $10 million that I'm gonna make on my billion. How much you gonna make on yours? So don't try to hold a gun to my head because I got all the money. And I'm gonna make money faster than you can save it. And by the way, your infrastructure is just one incident away from catastrophic failure. If it fails, that's on you. Don't come crying to me, because if you want my money, then it's gonna cost you more.
Mm-hmm.
So take it or leave it.
Okay. Question for you. On one of the slides, you said I think it's SDN replaces 5 to 8 legacy networks.
Yes, software-defined network. Excellent, excellent. Yes, ma'am.
So have any corporations invested in the legacy, in the SDN?
Oh yeah, SDNs are very popular in the corporate world. Now there's some innovations that have come up, and one of the benefits of using an SDN in an enterprise. So in an enterprise, as opposed to the public, in an enterprise, like if all of us worked at the same company, then our privacy rights stay in the parking lot. Once we come indoors, all of the information that we deal with belongs to the company, period. And so therefore, the enterprise can put in place a network that has security that you can't implement in the public domain.
Okay.
Because when I'm in the public and I go to the stadium, or when I used to be able to go to the stadium to see a football game, you could not violate my privacy rights.
Okay.
But if I work at the stadium, and that's my place of business, as soon as I walk in there, everything I do on my phone belongs to you.
Okay.
So the point is that the software-defined networks there's a number of reasons why people love them, not the least of which is it's a whole lot cheaper to change a network using software than to have to go in and redo all that hardware.
Good point. Good.
Plus, I can also do the applications, for example, that you're using on your cell phones. That is, if you will, a part of the software-defined network approach to doing business.
Mm-hmm.
So that same cell phone that somebody else has, if you get an app that I don't have, that means you can use your phone to do some things that I can't do with mine. So effectively, that software is defining your ability to use resources in the network.
Okay.
Software-defined networks are emerging in popularity, and 5G is growing. And by the way, just in general, new technology. So you remember how many people are mad now with, what's his name? Jeff Bezos. Mad. I really do like his spread collars. Jeff Bezos wears some of the best spread collars I've ever seen. Big fat.
Amazon got them cheap.
Jeff Bezos' money has just tripled over the last few months. But nobody was willing to help Jeff Bezos with his innovation when he had to raise $300,000 from his parents.
Yep.
Now that he's worth $300 billion, everybody's saying, oh, Jeff Bezos is the devil. I might be the devil, but can your spread collar look like this? And so the point is that if we don't innovate, do you think the Chinese are going to say, oh, the Americans stopped innovating, so I guess we should pull back?
No.
Do you think the Koreans are going to do that, or the Russians, or even Europe for that matter? It's innovate or perish. You don't have a choice.
That's good. That's good.
For our simulation, are we the first out of the gate, the trendsetters, or can we do like a market analysis to show the investors how the decision has fared for other companies?
Excellent, excellent question.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say that, yes, you are the showcase trendsetter. So here's what that means. If you fail miserably, your network stays in place and your budget stays in place. If you win, you get a new network that has been verified to be as effective as promised. Otherwise, the people who put the network in place don't get paid. And if you are the first out of the gate, now just remember about these, especially if you are one of the appointees in one of these agencies, your job may be 4 years old and that's it. At the end of those 4 years, if you last that long, you got to look for another job.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you put on your resume that you were the one who was a decision maker and a leader with the implementation of this new solution, does that make you more hireable or less desirable? So then I would ask your question again to you. Do you want to be the first out of the gate? Or Jane come lately?
Mm.
I want to be the first out of the gate, because if we're going to fail, we might as well fail fast, but we learn something with each failure.
All right. Okay. So now, by the way, so that's it. That's all I had to say for the leadership. You can kind of see now through this exercise some of the challenges of leadership. This is just my point of view. So by all means, if I've said anything that conflates or does not agree rather with what you've been learning in class, and just set my little bit of stuff aside. But what I tried to do was to give you a picture of a real world. Actually, it's happening today as we speak.
Yes.
And you would be pleased to know that all of the pros and cons that you all have come up with are exactly the pros and cons that have been brought up by the people who are now sitting at the edge of making this decision.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, when I say edge, they were making it in the Obama administration. They're still trying to make it. And I believe that it would not surprise me if they don't make it until the next president comes in. And even they will probably be sitting on their hands. And the challenge of leadership is to get people to decide to either get in the game or get off.
Mm-hmm.
Get going.
Well, you provided real world negotiating techniques. So I really appreciate that, because, you know, we're at Judson and we always integrate faith and learning. And you did say at the end of the presentation, and compassion, but these are real world techniques, and I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you, Dr.
Amen.
Yes, yes.
All right, well, thank you all. It's a great class. Everybody gets an A from me. Now, I can't help you with your grade.
Which group won and what is our prize?
You get to matriculate.
Amen.
And hopefully, you'll be developing and burnishing some tools that you'll be able to use as you encounter those environments where you have the same type of pro and con dilemma.
This was fun. Thank you so much. Hopefully you get to come back to one of these.
Oh,
There's a lot of hope.
This was outstanding.
But you all have been great. Thank you so much. Thank the Lord.
Outstanding. Outstanding.
Yes. Thank you. I was going to say Deacon Wyatt. Thank you, Dr. Wyatt. I appreciate it.
That's all right. I get called a whole lot of things.
Yeah.
Thank you for your real world responses.
Yeah.
We so appreciate it.
Amen. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Have a good week.
Yes, you too.
Okay,
So long from Georgia.
Hey, man, good to see you, brother.
All right. Good to be seen and not viewed.
You know that's right. Well, these days you can't get that.
There you go.
All
All right. Take care.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.